The battlefield stretched under a dark, smoky sky, jagged rocks and broken metals scattered everywhere. Fires burned in the distance, lighting the ruins of machines and buildings that once belonged to a thriving alien city. The air was thick with dust, and the screams of soldiers echoed across the plain. Among the chaos stood Zyra, a green-skinned alien warrior with sharp eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Her armor was scratched and scorched, but she moved with confidence, her long blade flashing in her hands as she cut down enemies with precision. She was not just any fighter. She was a legend. Stories of her victories spread across galaxies. Her name alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of her enemies. Zyra had fought hundreds of battles, faced creatures far larger and stronger than humans, and she had always emerged victorious. She had learned to trust only herself, relying on speed, skill, and instinct. Today, however, something felt different. The enemy seemed to anticipate her moves. She had been leading her squad through a narrow canyon when the ground shook violently. Explosions tore through the rocks, and debris rained down from above. She leaped aside, narrowly avoiding a falling boulder, but when she landed, she realized she had walked straight into a trap. From the shadows, dozens of enemy soldiers emerged. They were faster and more numerous than any Zyra had faced before. She swung her blade, cutting through the first wave, but more kept coming. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the sudden realization that this fight might not end in her favor. She had been careless. Pride had always been her strength, but now it felt like a chain around her neck, weighing her down. Zyra darted between explosions, trying to find an opening. She could hear the taunts of her enemies mocking her skill and her reputation. "The mighty Zyra falls," one shouted. Another laughed. "Even legends bleed like insects." The words stung, but she could not let them break her focus. She swung her blade in wide arcs, striking down enemy after enemy, but they kept coming, relentless and coordinated. Her weapons, finely tuned and deadly, began to fail one by one. Her energy blade flickered and died. Her jet boots sputtered, leaving her grounded and slower than usual. Panic had never touched her before, but now it crept into her chest. She had never felt this kind of danger, where survival seemed uncertain. She knew that if she fell here, her name would die with her, her legend reduced to a cautionary tale whispered among the stars. Then she saw him. At first he looked ordinary, almost fragile compared to her and the monsters surrounding them. He was a human, a captain, wearing a simple armored suit, holding a strange weapon that looked nothing like her sophisticated alien tools. Zyra barely had time to register his presence before he fired. A series of precise shots exploded among her attackers, sending them flying, toppling them like dominoes. The humans moved with a strange combination of calm and daring, using strategy and quick thinking to turn the tide. Zyra froze for a moment, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile creatures. Their bodies could not match alien strength. Their weapons were crude, and yet this one human, this Captain Ethan Ward, had saved her. He moved through the battlefield with purpose, not panicking, as she would have expected. Every shot he fired was deliberate, every movement calculated. Slowly, she realized that he was not strong in the way she was, but his mind was sharper than any weapon she had known. She wanted to continue fighting on her own, to show that she did not need help. Her pride demanded it. But the enemies pressed closer, and her options vanished one by one. Her blade felt heavy in her hand, her movements slower. Exhaustion hit her all at once. She stumbled, falling to one knee, and a sharp pain shot through her arm. She could feel defeat closing in. For the first time in her long life, Zyra understood the feeling of helplessness. The human captain reached her just in time. He grabbed her arm and pulled her back as an explosion rocked the ground where she had been standing moments before. She tried to resist, pride clashing with survival instincts, but it was useless. He had her, steadying her, keeping her from being crushed by debris or overwhelmed by enemies. Her sharp eyes, which had always struck fear into others, now widened in disbelief and fear of a different kind, one that came from facing her own mortality. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. Zyra's mind raced, trying to find a way to reclaim control. But every plan she considered ended in failure. She could not cut through the enemies, could not leap to safety, could not outfight what surrounded her. And then, almost instinctively, she did something she had never done before. She lowered her head, knelt fully on the scorched ground, and looked up at the human. "Save me," she said, her voice steady but quiet. There was no pride in it, no challenge. It was a plea, raw and honest. Zyra, the great warrior, kneeling and begging a human to save her. The word seemed alien even to her own ears. She had always been the hunter, never the hunted. Always the savior, never the one in need. And now, here she was, asking for mercy and help. Captain Ethan Ward did not hesitate. He nodded, understanding her situation without words. He fired again, covering her back as she struggled to rise, then motioned for her to follow. With careful steps, they moved through the battlefield together. Zyra, who had faced countless enemies, felt an unfamiliar dependence on this human, and yet, as they fought side by side, she could see something she had never truly appreciated. Humans were clever, resourceful, and brave beyond measure. Their strength did not lie in size or muscle, but in their ability to think, to adapt, to survive against impossible odds. They fought their way through the remaining enemies, using every trick, every maneuver, every piece of debris as a weapon. Zyra's blade found its mark, but it was Ethan's tactics that truly made the difference. They moved as a team, instinctively trusting each other in ways Zyra had never trusted anyone. And for the first time in her life, she felt something other than pride in battle. She felt gratitude. By the time they reached the edge of the battlefield, the enemies had retreated, leaving behind a silence that was almost eerie. Fires burned in the distance, and the sky remained dark with smoke, but the immediate danger was gone. Zyra lowered her blade and looked at the human captain. She could hardly believe what had just happened. The one she had saved countless times, the one who had been the savior of planets and armies, had now been saved by a human.
I owe you my life, she said.
Her voice was quiet, but there was a weight to it that could not be ignored. She had never owed anyone anything, not her soldiers, not her leaders, not even her enemies. And yet, here she was, speaking words she had never imagined she would say. I don't know how to repay you. Ethan Ward shook his head, his expression calm.
Just survive, he said simply. That's enough for now.
You fought well. You're still a legend. Zyra felt a strange mix of shame and relief. Her pride had been wounded, yes, but something deeper had awakened. She had glimpsed a new kind of strength, one that did not rely solely on power or skill, but on courage, ingenuity, and trust. For the first time, she wondered what humans were truly capable of, and whether she had underestimated them all along. As they moved away from the battlefield, Zyra's thoughts swirled. She had been the hunter, the unmatched warrior, the legend of her people. And yet she had been saved by someone she once might have considered inferior. It was humbling, but it also ignited a spark inside her, a spark of curiosity, of respect, and perhaps even friendship. She did not know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain: her life and her view of humans would never be the same again. The distant fires crackled behind them as they walked side by side. Zyra, the legendary alien warrior, had fallen, but she had also risen to a new understanding. She had knelt, she had begged, and she had survived. And for the first time in her long life, she felt that she was learning something more important than victory. She was learning respect for the courage of others, even those who were not like her. The journey had just begun, The human ship glided through the dark expanse of space, a sleek silver vessel cutting silently through the stars. Zyra stood near the viewing window, her green skin faintly glowing in the dim light, her arms crossed over her chest. She was uneasy, still unaccustomed to the humans and their strange ways. The battlefield she had just survived replayed in her mind. The explosions, the screams, and the way a human had saved her. She had never imagined she would kneel before anyone, let alone a human. Pride and respect warred inside her, leaving her restless. Ethan Ward, the captain who had saved her, walked up beside her. His armor was scratched from their battle, but his calm expression remained.
"You're quiet," he said. "You don't say much for a warrior who survived death twice today."
Zyra turned her gaze to him. "I am not used to relying on others," she admitted. Her voice was even, but it carried a hint of tension.
"I have always fought alone."
"I have always been in control." Ethan nodded.
"I understand. But out here, control doesn't come from strength alone.
It comes from knowing when to trust others. Right now, you need to trust us, just as we trusted you in battle."
What?
She looked at him carefully. Humans were smaller than her, slower, physically weaker, but they moved with a confidence that was almost alien in itself. It was not brute force that had saved her. It was their intelligence, their strategy, and their ability to remain calm under pressure. She had seen strength in countless forms, but never like this. The ship's intercom buzzed, breaking the quiet tension.
"Captain, we've picked up enemy activity near the outer system."
"Multiple patrols are converging on our location." Ethan straightened, eyes narrowing. "Zyra, we need you on this. Your skills will help us get through it. Are you ready?" Zyra's fingers itched for her blade, but she shook her head. "I will fight," she said simply, "but I will follow your plan, not my instincts." Saying the words aloud made her stomach tighten. She had never let anyone lead her, never followed a strategy that was not her own. Yet the memory of her near defeat pushed her to try. The humans assembled in the command room. Panels blinked with warnings and holographic maps of the enemy patrols. Ethan outlined the plan. The human ship would lure the patrols into a narrow asteroid field where maneuverability would be limited. Zyra and a small strike team would disable the patrols from the outside, using speed and stealth rather than brute force. Zyra studied the map. The plan was unconventional, relying on traps, misdirection, and careful timing. In her culture, warriors attacked head-on, showing their strength and skill. The idea of letting the enemy walk into danger intentionally felt foreign, almost dishonorable. Yet, she could see the logic in it. Survival depended not on pride, but on effectiveness. The ship accelerated, slipping into the darkness toward the asteroid field. Zyra stood near the docking bay, her armor glinting faintly. Humans moved around her with quiet efficiency, checking weapons, reviewing strategies, and double-checking equipment. They worked as a team, each person knowing exactly what to do. She had never seen soldiers work together with such precision. Her own forces had often depended on individual skill rather than teamwork, and sometimes that had led to unnecessary loss. Watching the humans, Zyra felt a strange sense of respect and a pang of envy. When they reached the asteroid field, the tension was palpable. Enemy patrol ships appeared on the scanners, their sleek bodies glinting against the blackness of space. They were fast and well-armed, but the humans were ready. Ethan took the controls, weaving the ship through the asteroids with precision, baiting the enemy into following them. Zara and the strike team suited up and prepared to deploy in small pods designed for rapid movement in zero gravity. As they launched, Zyra's heart pounded. She felt the familiar thrill of battle, tempered by the knowledge that she was no longer acting alone. Humans flanked her, moving in patterns that complemented her strikes rather than clashing with them. Her instincts told her to charge, to cut through the enemy in a whirlwind of blades, but she forced herself to follow the plan. Timing was everything. and patience was a weapon she had rarely wielded. The battle began. Enemy ships swarmed around them, firing with deadly accuracy. Zyra moved swiftly, striking down the first patrol with her blade, slicing through hulls and disabling weapons. A human pilot guided her through the debris, shouting instructions over the comm. "Left, now!" she followed, leaping between floating rocks as explosions shook the field. For the first time, she felt what it was like to fight as part of a team rather than as a lone warrior. Every move she made was coordinated, every attack synchronized. She began to see the genius in human tactics, the way they used the environment, their speed, and clever tricks to outsmart enemies who were stronger or faster. She realized that strength alone was not always enough. Survival required brains as well as brawn. The fight escalated. Zyra was surrounded by enemy drones, small but deadly, equipped with plasma weapons that could tear through alien armor. She fought desperately, deflecting blasts with her blade and leaping across asteroids to gain higher ground. Then a drone aimed directly at her, too fast to evade. Before she could react, a human soldier fired a precise shot, disabling the drone and saving her. She stopped for a moment, breathing heavily, and looked at him through her visor. "Your timing," she said, almost in disbelief. "You are remarkable." He smiled briefly, acknowledging her respect. "And you're not so bad yourself," he said simply. "We just need to cover each other. That's how we win." The remainder of the enemy patrols were drawn into a trap, an asteroid cluster rigged with explosive charges. Zyra triggered her part of the plan, sending a charge that obliterated a cluster of ships, sending debris tumbling through space. The humans had coordinated it perfectly. The explosion forced the remaining enemy vessels into predictable paths, allowing the team to disable them. By the time the battle ended, Zyra was exhausted. Her armor was scorched, her blade nicked, and yet she had survived. More importantly, she had survived by trusting humans, by working with them, and by letting go of her need to control everything. She felt a mix of humility and admiration. These creatures, whom she had once dismissed as weak, had shown her a strength she had never known. Strength of mind, strength of strategy, and strength of unity. Back on the ship, Zyra removed her helmet and ran a hand through her hair. The humans worked quietly, repairing the ship and attending to minor injuries, but they did not boast or show arrogance. They were calm, composed, and competent, a sharp contrast to the chaotic and prideful alien warriors she knew. She realized that perhaps she had been wrong about humans all along. Perhaps their true power lay not in weapons or brute strength, but in their ability to think clearly under pressure, to adapt quickly, and to work together when it mattered most. Ethan approached her again. "You did well out there. You adapted quickly, faster than I expected." Zyra met his gaze. "I followed your plan. I learned from you. Today, humans saved me once again."
She paused, thinking about the words. "And I see now that I respect you."
"All of you. More than I expected."
Ethan nodded, understanding the significance of her words. Zyra was not easily impressed, and respect from her carried weight.
"Good. That's all I ask."
Respect goes both ways. We all rely on each other to survive. The rest of the journey was quieter, each member of the team tending to their duties, while Zyra observed, learning more about human behavior. She began to understand the subtle ways they communicated, the way they planned, and the value they placed on life, both their own and others. Her pride had not disappeared, but it had transformed into a deeper understanding. She was no longer just a warrior relying on her strength. She was part of a team, and her success now depended on more than skill alone. As they approached the human command center, a new transmission appeared on the screen. A message from the enemy's higher command flashed ominously. "The one you call human has interfered. We will not forget. Prepare for retaliation." Zyra felt a thrill of anticipation. She was ready. But she knew that this battle and the ones to come would require more than her skill alone. She would need to continue learning from humans, trusting their instincts, and working as part of a team. Her mind raced with strategy, but she no longer felt the crushing weight of arrogance. She had tasted the strength of humans, and it had humbled her in the best way possible. For the first time, she felt hope, not only for survival, but for something greater. The galaxy was vast, and danger was everywhere, but together, she and these humans might just be unstoppable. And as the ship moved forward, Zyra clenched her fist, feeling the strange mixture of pride and humility. She had survived the battlefield, learned from humans, and discovered that even legends could grow stronger by trusting others. The war was far from over, but Zyra was ready. She would fight, learn, and adapt, alongside the humans who had changed the way she saw the universe. The galaxy stretched endlessly outside the human ship, a canvas of stars, asteroids, and drifting debris. Zyra sat near the viewing window, her mind heavy with thoughts. She had survived the battlefield, learned to work with humans, and even respected them. Yet now, as the enemy's higher command sent threats across the void, she felt a tension she had never experienced before. This battle would not be fought with speed alone or sharp blades. It would require every ounce of strategy, every instinct, and complete trust in humans. Ethan Ward walked into the room, his calm presence a steadying force.
Zyra, we're approaching the enemy's main fortress. This is where it gets dangerous.
Our scouts report heavy defenses, and their numbers are overwhelming. We'll need to rely on every trick we have. Zyra rose, her blade at her side. I will fight, she said, her voice steady, but I must follow your plan. She hesitated for a moment, the old pride in her chest clashing with the need to trust. I am not used to being guided, but I see now. It is necessary. Ethan nodded.
Good. You will lead a strike team.
Our approach is unconventional, and it depends on timing and precision. We cannot overpower them directly. We must outsmart them. The fortress appeared on the horizon, a massive structure of black metal that gleamed faintly against the starlight. Its walls were covered with weapons, shields, and automated defenses. Zyria's first instinct was to charge, to cut a path through the defenses with her blade, but she remembered the last battle and the human strategy that had saved her. She breathed deeply, centering herself. This fight would be different. The strike team assembled in the docking bay, humans and Zyra moving together as one unit. Each member checked weapons, communicated silently, and reviewed the plan. Zyra observed them carefully. They were not strong like her, yet their coordination, timing, and calmness under pressure gave them a power she had never seen in alien warriors. Strength could win battles, but unity and ingenuity could win wars. As they approached the fortress in small pods, the enemy noticed them immediately. Defense turrets opened fire, and alarms blared through the fortress. Zyra's heart raced, yet she stayed calm. She moved with her team, dodging blasts and weaving through obstacles. Her blade found its mark when necessary, cutting through enemy drones, but it was the humans' coordination and clever tactics that kept them alive. They reached a critical point, a narrow passage leading deep into the fortress. The enemy had set a trap. Rows of drones patrolled the corridor, and energy barriers blocked the path. Zyra's instinct screamed at her to charge, to fight her way through, but she forced herself to follow the plan. Timing and precision were everything. A human soldier motioned, and Zyra triggered a device that disabled the first energy barrier. They moved forward, step by step, carefully avoiding patrols. Each action was coordinated, each movement deliberate. Zyra marveled at how humans could manipulate technology and environment in ways her own species never had. They were small and seemingly fragile, yet their minds were sharp and adaptive. Suddenly, a trap was triggered. The corridor lit up with energy beams, designed to fry anyone caught in them. Zyra leapt and twisted in midair, barely avoiding the blasts, but one drone fired directly at her, faster than she could react. She braced herself, preparing to strike, when a human soldier threw a small device that exploded near the drone, disabling it instantly. Zyra froze for a moment, heart pounding. "Your timing," she whispered, almost in disbelief.
"Ooh, you are extraordinary." The soldier smiled briefly, acknowledging her respect. "We all cover each other," he said simply.
"That's how we survive." They continued through the fortress, facing enemy soldiers, automated drones, and deadly traps. Zyra fought with precision, her blade flashing in the dim light, but it was the humans' planning that kept them ahead. They used distractions, misdirection, and the fortress itself to outmaneuver enemies far stronger than themselves. Zyra began to feel a strange sense of awe. These humans were not physically dominant, but they had a resilience, a cleverness, and a courage that was unmatched. Finally, they reached the central chamber of the fortress, where the enemy's command center was located. Zyra's old enemies were waiting, a group of elite warriors she had faced in previous battles. They sneered at her, confident that this time she would fail. She tightened her grip on her blade, but she knew brute strength alone would not win this fight. Ethan spoke through the comm, outlining the plan.
"Zyra, you take the left flank.
The humans will create distractions on the right. Timing is critical. Move only when I signal." Zyra nodded. For the first time, she felt the power of teamwork in its truest form. She had relied on herself for decades, but now she was part of a unit that used brains, strategy, and coordination to achieve what raw strength could not. The battle began. Zyra moved swiftly, cutting down enemies with her blade, but always staying in sync with the humans' movements. Explosions rocked the chamber as humans deployed traps, hacking systems, and disabling defenses. The enemy elite warriors were skilled, but they were unprepared for the combination of alien strength and human strategy. Zyra found herself caught in a trap, surrounded by enemies. Her instincts told her to fight, to strike and cut her way out, but she realized that would be reckless. Instead, she waited, listening to the humans' comms. Ethan's voice came through, calm and precise.
"Zyra, now! Move left!"
She followed the signal, using the environment to her advantage. The humans had created a chain reaction that disoriented the enemies, giving her the opening she needed. She struck quickly, disabling the remaining warriors with precise blows. She could feel her pulse racing, but there was no fear, only focus. When the dust settled, the command center was theirs. The humans had proven once again that strength alone was not enough. Zyra looked around at her team. Humans exhausted, but victorious. She felt a surge of respect and gratitude. They had not only saved her life again, but they had shown her a new way to fight, a new way to survive, and a new way to see the universe. Ethan approached her, his expression calm but proud.
"You did well," he said.
"You adapted. You fought as part of the team, and we won because of it." Zyra lowered her blade, breathing heavily.
I have never experienced anything like this.
I have fought countless battles, but this was different. You humans, you fight not just with strength, but with minds that are sharper than any weapon I have known. I respect that." Ethan nodded. "And we respect you. Your skill saved lives out there. Together, we are stronger than we could ever be alone." Zyra's thoughts turned inward. She realized that the battles she had fought alone, relying only on her strength and skill, had limited her understanding of true power. Humans had shown her that courage, strategy, and teamwork could overcome impossible odds. For the first time in her life, she felt that she was learning something greater than victory. She was learning respect, humility, and the value of unity. The central chamber hummed with energy as the team worked to secure the fortress systems. Zyra observed humans manipulating controls she did not fully understand, creating effects that disoriented the remaining enemy forces. She had never seen technology used in such clever ways. Every move was calculated, every action purposeful. She realized that this was a different kind of battlefield, one where intellect and planning could triumph over raw might. Hours passed, and the fortress was fully under their control. Zyra stood at the viewing port, watching the stars beyond. She thought of her people, her homeworld, and all the battles she had fought. She felt a strange mixture of pride and humility. She had survived, yes, but she had survived because she had trusted humans, because she had worked as part of a team, and because she had embraced a new way of fighting. Ethan joined her once more. "You've changed," he said quietly. "I can see it. You're still a warrior, but now you see the value in more than strength. That's why you survived today." Zyra turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "I see it now. Humans are remarkable. I underestimated you before. I understand now that strength alone does not make a warrior. Survival, strategy, and courage, these are just as important, perhaps more so. I am grateful to you all." Ethan nodded, acknowledging her words. "We all learn from each other. That's how we survive. That's how we win." Zyra clenched her fist, feeling a newfound determination. The war was far from over. The enemy would retaliate, stronger and more prepared than ever. But she no longer feared them as she once would have. She had humans at her side. Humans who thought in ways she could not. She had learned humility, trust, and the strength of unity. She was ready for whatever came next. As the human ship departed from the fortress, leaving the enemy scrambling to recover, Zyra stood tall. She had faced her ultimate test, not just in combat, but in accepting that she could rely on humans, that she could follow a plan that was not her own, and that victory was not only about power, but about teamwork and strategy. For the first time, Zyra felt truly prepared for the challenges ahead. The galaxy was vast, and danger lurked everywhere, but she was no longer alone. She had humans by her side, and together they were a force stronger than any enemy she had ever faced. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and Zyra's eyes glimmered with determination. She had survived the ultimate test, and she had grown stronger, not just as a warrior, but as someone who understood the true meaning of strength. The human ship moved swiftly through the dark void of space, its engines leaving a faint trail of blue light behind. Zyra stood at the observation window, staring at the distant outline of the enemy's stronghold. It was massive, a fortress built into an asteroid, bristling with weapons and shields. She could feel the weight of the coming battle pressing on her chest. Unlike before, though, she no longer felt fear. She had learned to trust humans, to rely on strategy as much as strength. She had survived impossible odds, and she was ready. Ethan Ward appeared at her side, his expression calm but serious. "This is it," he said. "The enemy is aware of our presence. Their defenses are stronger than anything we have faced. We'll need to combine everything we know, strategy, timing, and your skill." Zyra nodded, gripping the hilt of her blade. "I am ready," she said, "but I will need to follow your lead completely. I have learned that I cannot fight alone, this time." Ethan smiled faintly. "Good. We need you at your best, but we also need your trust. Without it, we will fail." The strike team assembled in the docking bay. Humans checked their weapons, coordinated movements, and double-checked every plan. Zyra watched, impressed by their meticulous preparation. Every action was deliberate, every step calculated. She realized that human survival depended not on individual strength, but on unity, intelligence, and courage. She had spent decades relying on herself, But now she understood that even a legendary warrior could be stronger with allies. As they launched their pods toward the fortress, enemy sensors detected them immediately. Automated defenses opened fire, sending streaks of energy across the void. Zyra leapt from one pod to another, her movements fluid and precise. Her blade struck down attacking drones, but it was human strategy that kept them alive. Every move was synchronized, every attack was coordinated. The enemy was strong, but they were not clever enough to anticipate the combined force of humans and Zyra working together. They reached the outer walls of the fortress. Shields glowed bright against their weapons, impenetrable by normal attacks. Ethan communicated a new plan. The humans would create diversions to draw fire, while Zyra and a small team infiltrated the main control room. Zyra hesitated for a moment, instinct urging her to storm the front gates. Then she remembered the lessons she had learned. Strength alone was not enough. Strategy, patience, and trust were just as vital. The strike team moved silently through a narrow service corridor, the hum of the fortress around them. Enemy patrols passed by, unaware of their presence. Zyra struck with precision, disabling sentries quietly, her movements blending with shadows. Humans guided her through security systems, hacking doors and sensors to allow safe passage. She marveled at how clever they were. How small, fragile creatures could manipulate the fortress with such ease and intelligence. Suddenly, an alarm blared. The team had been detected. Enemy soldiers poured into the corridor, weapons raised. Zyra's heart raced, but she remained calm. Humans moved beside her, firing in synchronized bursts, their shots precise and calculated. Zyra struck with her blade, cutting through enemies with deadly skill, but she knew this fight required more than her strength. Timing, positioning, and teamwork were everything. A large enemy warrior lunged at Zyra, faster and stronger than any she had faced before. She countered with her blade, but the enemy knocked her back with a powerful strike. She stumbled, struggling to regain balance, when Ethan appeared with a small squad of humans. They fired at the warrior, distracting him long enough for Zyra to regain control. With a swift, precise strike, she disabled the enemy. Zyra's chest heaved with exertion, but there was no fear, only focus. She had faced countless battles, yet this one felt different. She was no longer alone. Humans, weaker in body but stronger in mind and courage, were at her side. Their tactics and strategy amplified her skill, making them an unstoppable force together. She had learned humility, trust, and respect, and now she applied it in the heat of battle. The team pushed forward, reaching the central control room. The enemy leader, a massive alien general, awaited them. His armor gleamed, his weapons charged, and his eyes burned with fury. Zyra felt the thrill of anticipation. She had faced formidable foes before, but this enemy combined raw strength with cunning. She knew that the coming battle would test everything she had learned. The humans initiated a coordinated attack. Drones swarmed the general from one side, while another team hacked the control systems, shutting down defenses. Zyra moved with precision, dodging energy blasts and striking where it mattered most. She realized that humans were not just fighting. They were thinking, analyzing, adapting in ways her enemies could not anticipate. The general struck at her with overwhelming force, but Zyra remembered Ethan's lessons. She used the environment, bouncing off walls and debris, creating openings for humans to exploit. Together, they turned the tide. A human soldier fired a calculated shot, disabling the general's shield generator. Zyra seized the opportunity, striking a decisive blow that sent him crashing to the floor. For the first time in her life, Zyra experienced the power of unity. Alone, she might have fought valiantly, but she would never have overcome the general without the human's intelligence, strategy, and courage. She realized that true strength was not just skill or power. It was knowing when to rely on others, when to combine strengths, and when to trust. With the general defeated, the fortress fell into chaos. The remaining enemies fled or surrendered, unable to comprehend how a small human-led team had defeated them. Zira looked around at the humans, exhausted but victorious. She felt a deep sense of respect and gratitude. They had not only saved her life again, but they had shown her the true meaning of strength, courage, and teamwork. Ethan approached her, his calm demeanor unchanged.
You did it, he said.
You led the team, adapted and fought with strategy as well as skill. You've grown stronger, not just as a warrior, but as part of something greater. Breathing heavily and met his gaze. I have learned more than I ever imagined, she said. I thought strength alone made a warrior. I was wrong. Courage, intelligence, and unity, these are just as powerful. You humans have shown me a new way to fight, to survive, and to understand strength. Ethan nodded, and we've learned from you as well. Your skill and determination saved lives. Together, we are stronger than any enemy. Zyra felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of pride, humility, and respect. For decades, she had relied solely on herself, believing that her legend was enough. Now, she understood that even the greatest warrior could grow stronger by trusting others, by combining skill with strategy, and by respecting the courage of those who seemed smaller, weaker, or different. The humans began to secure the fortress, restoring control systems and ensuring no further threats remained. Zyra observed quietly, noting their meticulous care and intelligence. She realized that humans were remarkable, not because they were stronger than alien warriors, but because they adapted, planned, and fought with courage and ingenuity. She had underestimated them before, but now she understood their true power. As the fortress fell under human control, Zyra stood at the viewing window, gazing at the stars. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that the battle had been won not by force alone, but by teamwork, strategy, and trust. She had survived the ultimate challenge, grown beyond her old pride, and embraced a new way of fighting. Ethan joined her once more.
You've changed, he said quietly.
I can see it. You're still a warrior, but now you see strength differently. That's why we won. Zyra nodded, a faint smile on her lips. I understand now. Humans are remarkable. I respect you all. I kneel no longer in desperation, but in gratitude and recognition of what we have achieved together. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and Zyra felt a renewed sense of purpose. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and unknowns, but she was no longer alone. She had humans by her side. Humans whose courage, intelligence, and determination had proven stronger than raw power. She was ready to face whatever came next. As the human ship departed from the fortress, leaving the enemy scattered and disoriented, Zyra turned to Ethan. We will face more challenges, she said, but I am ready. Together, we are unstoppable. Ethan nodded. We are a team now. That is our greatest strength. Zyra clenched her fist, feeling the thrill of battle and the warmth of trust. She had survived, grown, and learned the true meaning of strength. She was a warrior, yes, but now she was more than that. She was part of a team, a force that combined skill, courage, and intelligence in a way the galaxy had never seen. The journey ahead would be long and perilous, but Zyra no longer feared it. She had learned humility, respect, and the power of unity. She had knelt and begged once, but now she stood tall, proud, and ready. The galaxy awaited, and together with the humans, she would face it head-on, stronger than ever before. The stars shone brightly around them, and Zyra knew one thing with certainty. Legends could grow, but true strength came from understanding, trust, and the courage to fight together.